like I love that you've been through volatility. And I know you've been through volatility, but like I think there's something about going through that. It's actually been scientifically proven that it going through hard times actually makes like your brain gets conditioned to be able to overcome
For
more.
sure.
Yeah.
You
If you can come out the other side.
yes,
Some people can't. I mean, I believe everyone can
but not
under the
everybody
right
does.
circumstances, but not everybody does.
Yeah.
And there's other factors always involved.
Yes.
You know, but it's hard,
But
and you have to keep fighting for yourself.
but having conversations like this, it's really great because somebody else might be feeling like they can't come out on the other side, that they don't know how
That's
they're going to
right.
do it.
That's right. But you
And
can.
it's like, when I think about you and I think about legacy, and legacies are so important because legacies are sometimes they're only as good as how we like keep them alive. And you as a woman have done such a great job of keeping your family's legacy alive and also within your daughters. I saw your girls at WrestleMania when Hunter was getting inducted. These girls, when I see kids that are just well-rounded, amazing, strong people, the first thing I think of is like their parents did a great job. And so you see these girls, they're just beautiful. They're just poised. They're sitting in the audience. I mean, they're so confident. That has a lot to do with how they were raised, the way that they were surrounded, how they were nurtured.
So much love.
Love they're
Yeah.
surrounded by, but also like they've probably been surrounded by volatility, which teaches them how to be stronger. You can't be a well-rounded person by just smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Well, life is hard
Yeah.
no matter
Yeah.
who you are and no matter what your circumstances are. And it's harder for some than for others,
Yeah.
but it's always going to be hard.
Yeah.
And you got to be, I think it's also what helps you appreciate all the things that really do matter.
Yes.
Is going through the hard times. It's when I almost lost Paul. That's my husband.
Yeah.
That's my everything. And it just really reframed my whole perspective on what mattered. And I don't really care if he takes out the trash or not.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
enough time now where I'm starting to, get annoyed again. But
I was going to ask how long it lasted.
We need to have
for,
TJ and
'cause
Paul have a little
I
talk
know.
with us. No, but and what the type of situation that he had with his heart is usually not good. It's usually fatal.
It's called the Widowmaker for
Yes.
a reason.
And so
Yeah.
it's you realize how lucky you are. You
Yeah.
realize how blessed you are. You realize that like
And I am blessed
Yes.
with my husband and with my 3 girls. I mean, my children are like, thank you for saying it's good parenting, and I hope we've done and continue to do the best job we possibly can. But we are blessed. We have the most incredible children. They just really are, and they have such big, kind hearts.
Yes.
And they're all so different. I mean, and they're all so smart. Like, we are truly blessed. So it's who they are.
Yeah.
Also,
Yes. And it's
first
just
and foremost, I should say.
it's nice too though that they've seen like they've seen their parents come out of hard situations, and it makes them stronger, and they see how you lead, and they see how it's like it's important for kids to see that. Like my dad's situation, it did make me a stronger person. But you're right in saying like not everybody comes out stronger. Like there's some
Yeah.
stuff with my dad, like from growing up that we like stuff we still haven't healed from,
Mm.
but we talk about it, we work through it. That's why again, to circle back to the episode you did with Randy, I just loved seeing those conversations. They're really valuable, and it just shows that you see Randy on TV and you're like, this guy, he's a superstar.
He's got it
Right.
all together.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah.
you hear people talk about what's really going on, and you're like, oh, like it helps people. These types of conversations help people, realize like life is short. Tomorrow is not promised to anybody.
Mm.
What is real? What is real is how we treat each other. What is real is, like finding little things to be excited about. Like I said, having coffee with my mom in the morning is like my favorite thing ever. Like I just love doing that. Just finding the little things are usually always the big things. And then even just forgiveness.
Yeah.
The book.
Forgiveness is a big point.
Yes.
What is it? To err is human, to forgive is divine. But when you truly do forgive in your heart, it is freeing. And, it doesn't mean you don't have to recognize the hurt to forgive,
Exactly.
because also, there's many different situations,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But I think it's such an important point is forgiveness. And I think that when you hang on to hate and negativity, it grows in you.
It hurts you.
It hurts you.
Yeah.
And Dr. King has a great quote that he chooses love because hate is far too great a burden to bear. And it's true. And it's heavy and it's dark. And if you can let that go and choose love, that's the best place you can be.
Absolutely. And it's just like, and I wrote about this in the book too. It's like for so much of my life, I was waiting for my dad to say he was sorry. I
Mm.
always wanted to hear that apology. I always wanted to I was like hoping one day he would say he was sorry for all the things that he had.
At least to acknowledge it,
Yes.
right?
And I realized that because he was struggling, he was like like an old lion that still wanted to roar, and he had so much pride still, but he didn't know how to say sorry. But
Mm.
there was other things that I was like, I know that he again, it was just forgiveness. And my dad was just an incredible person. Like I write, and I don't just write about the hard times. He was an amazing man. My dad actually, when he was 18 years old, was the #1 shot putter in the United States. Yeah.
Actually, I did know that. That's amazing.
Yes.
That
Right?
is so
He was
impressive.
NIL
No,
before
and that's just one example,
Yeah,
right?
he was NIL before, he was like a world-class athlete. So he was ranked #1 in the US, and then he was #5 in the world, which is why I am built in the front, stacked in the back.
I mean,
My dad is
Hallelujah.
you know all about
Thank
Steph
God.
she knows
Thank
all about
God.
genetics. You got like those, you're just you're thick. But my dad, I always had those Neidhart genetics. I was like, fuck. But
Hey, they've done you
Yeah, no,
very
that's
well.
fine.
You are gorgeous, Natty.
Thank you.
You are.
But my dad was just like a little tank, and he was just like, he had this build on him. So he was #1 in the U.S. when he was 18, and got a full scholarship to UCLA for track and field, ranked #5 in the world. And then he ended up playing for the Dallas Cowboys and the Oakland Raiders.
Damn. Yeah.
Ended up getting cut from those teams due to behavioral issues, which is in the book. You got to read the book. And then ended up meeting my grandfather and getting into wrestling. My grandfather saw him. My grandfather as a promoter, my grandfather was an incredible wrestling promoter. He saw my dad and he was just like, this Jim is just a solid son of a bitch. And my grandfather loved, my dad could do no wrong because he was like an athlete. So my grandfather overlooked all these things that my dad did. And my dad was just mischievous. He was a little hellraiser. And my grandfather taught.
Very similar to the character.
Yes, yes. Very, very. Any promos of the Anvil that you guys ever see, by the way, that was my dad all the time.
Yeah.
Pulling the goatee. I never had anybody ask me out on dates as a kid, like as a teenager. Like no boys would ever knock on the door. My dad, I think he called TJ Guy for a long time.
Like,
Hey,
no
pal.
name.
Hey, guy.
Yeah,
No, I've heard them all.
I never.
Boss is another one. Yeah.
I never even told my dad I was dating TJ for a long time. I was just like, this is just a friend. He's like, but my dad, he's just such a character. My grandfather loved him. And so he ended up, and now he's down in the history books as the, a WWE Hall of Famer. But my dad was an extraordinary person. He was funny. He was charming. He was charismatic. He could get himself out of my dad just he'd get pulled over for speeding and suddenly him and the cop were having a drink after at a bar. I always just say he always just landed on his feet. He was the best. I loved him. I loved all of our times together. And he really believed in me. Like he was the first person to tell me not to get into wrestling. And he's like, you can't do it, Natty. Like, it's going to be too hard for you. Like,
Why? Because you were a woman?
He didn't want to see me get hurt emotionally because when my dad was wrestling back in the 80s, there just wasn't that many, there was Miss Elizabeth, there was Sensational Sherry, there was Luna, there just wasn't that many women doing it. And so, of course, when your parents tell you no,
Then you
you're
want to do
like,
it.
yes. And so I remember I was going to Japan. It was my very first trip to Japan, and my dad and I had this huge fight, and he's like, you're just, nobody in our family is like, this is going to be so hard for you. And he was giving me good examples of people that, Japan's tough. It's a very, it's a very gritty style. And I told my dad we had this huge fight, and I ended with me in tears. I went to the airport, and my dad and I did end up blowing out my knee in Japan.
Oh, no.
And I was like, damn it, he was right.
No.
But he was right. He was like, it's tough, it's hard, it's but I kept going. And then he ended up becoming like my biggest cheerleader, and it was so cool because yes, he was right, but I was right too, because he had a point. And it's funny because like even his office, like when after my dad passed away, I was cleaning out his office, and I realized when I walked in there, I was like, it was like all of these moments that we had together. Like it was like this wrestling poster of like, it was a cutout, like a big cutout of me that they had made when I won the Divas title. And like he had that on the wall. He had pictures of us from a show. We did a tag team match together before I got signed with WWE. He had all of this stuff of us. Like he was just I was like, I didn't even realize how proud he was. Like, and I loved that he like held such a candle for me, and he loved my sisters as well. Like we were all close to my dad, but because we had that bond with wrestling, I was so lucky to share that bond with him. It made our connection so different. We shared that, and so it was just like, I just think of him all the time. I think of him every day, and I'm so grateful for all the lessons that he's taught me, and even for the genetics.
And Natty, he did show you, because you got to see it when you walked in the office. Like,
Yes,
that was his way.
without verbalizing it.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And now you know, and you have that in your heart.
It was just, there's been so many things that have been like really great closure for me. And writing the book is just, just writing it. It was really a love letter to my dad. It was a love letter to wrestling. It was a love letter to TJ. And it's also really funny too. Like, and I won't, it's the book has people, the book has people laughing their asses off because I do, and I know we have to wrap soon, but I tell a story about the great Kali and I on a road trip.
Oh my goodness.
I cannot even. Can I just give you guys a hiccup of the story really
Yes,
quick?
please.
So
How much
Man.
time do we have?
oh
13,
good. This is, by
okay.
the way, this is like I need a drink.
Yeah.
Why does
Yeah,
everyone
too.
say that?